The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting soft streaks of gold across the small apartment. Daniel sat at his kitchen table, stirring a cup of black coffee, his mind heavy with the weight of the past week. Work had been relentless. Responsibilities seemed to pile up without mercy, and his personal life felt like it was slowly unraveling. He exhaled, forcing himself to remember what he had been reading about Stoicism. If there was ever a time to apply its lessons, it was now. Control what you can. Accept what you can't. Daniel's phone vibrated with a new email from his manager, demanding last-minute revisions on a project. He felt the familiar surge of frustration rise, but then he stopped himself. "Is this within my control?" he asked. He could either let it ruin his morning or approach it with a composed mind. He chose the latter, pulling out his laptop and calmly addressing the request. The day continued to challenge him, traffic jams, a rude cashier, unexpected delays, but he reminded himself that these were external events, out of his control. His reaction, however, was entirely his own. Each time he felt irritation creeping in, he reminded himself that resistance was wasted energy. With every acceptance of what was beyond his power, he felt a small, liberating sense of peace. Over time, he began to notice that the more he embraced this mindset, the less frequently he found himself overwhelmed by stress. Instead of reacting impulsively, he trained himself to pause, assess, and choose his response with clarity and intention. Gratitude for the present moment. That evening, Daniel took a walk in the park. It had been years since he had walked without a destination. As he strolled, he noticed the crispness of the air, the laughter of children playing, the rhythmic sound of his own footsteps. He realized how much of his life had been spent chasing after the next achievement, always yearning for something just out of reach. But what about now? What about this moment? He sat on a bench, watching the sky fade from blue to orange. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He was here, he was alive, and for this, he was grateful. It wasn't that his problems had vanished, but they had shrunk in significance against the simple joy of being present. In the following weeks, he made it a habit to write down 3 things he was grateful for every day. This small ritual transformed his outlook. He found himself appreciating the warmth of his morning coffee, the smile of a stranger, the comforting weight of his favorite book. The more he practiced gratitude, the more his sense of contentment grew. Virtue over pleasure. Over the following weeks, Daniel started making conscious choices about his actions. He recognized that fleeting pleasures, endless social media scrolling, overeating, and avoidance of difficult tasks often left him feeling empty. Instead, he began asking himself, what is the virtuous thing to do? When he felt tempted to skip the gym, he reminded himself that discipline was a virtue. When he found himself wanting to lie to avoid an uncomfortable conversation, he chose honesty instead. Each small decision, when aligned with virtue, brought him a deeper sense of fulfillment than any pleasure ever had. As the days passed, he started feeling more in control of his life. Instead of being pulled by impulses and desires, he was now guided by principles that strengthened his character. He found satisfaction not in fleeting indulgences, but in the knowledge that he was living in alignment with his values. The power of perspective. One afternoon, Daniel's friend called him in distress. She had lost her job and felt as though her life was crumbling. Daniel listened, understanding her pain, but also recognizing an opportunity to share what he had learned. "Let me ask you something," he said gently. "If you look back 5 years from now, do you think this moment will define your entire life?" His friend was quiet for a moment before exhaling. "I guess not, but it feels so overwhelming right now." "Of course it does," he agreed. "But if you shift your perspective, you'll see that this is just a chapter, not the whole book. Use this time to grow, to learn, to find something new. Painful moments are often the start of something better." She thanked him, and as Daniel hung up the phone, he realized how often he had needed that same reminder. Perspective was everything. Over time, he started applying this mindset to his own setbacks. Whenever he encountered difficulties, he would step back and ask, "What lesson can I learn from this?" His problems didn't disappear, but they became easier to navigate. He had gained the ability to reframe struggles as opportunities. Memento Mori, embrace mortality. One evening, Daniel visited his grandfather in the hospital. The old man, once full of energy, now lay frail in his bed. Yet he smiled when he saw Daniel, his eyes still bright with life. "You know," his grandfather said, "I spent too many years worrying about things that never mattered. If I could do it again, I'd laugh more, love more, and let go of nonsense faster." Daniel held his grandfather's hand, feeling the weight of his words. Life was fleeting, yet so many wasted it on trivial fears and grudges. If he were to die tomorrow, what regrets would he have? And more importantly, what could he change today to ensure he had none? As he left the hospital that night, Daniel made a silent vow to live fully, to love openly, and to embrace every moment with gratitude. He would not let life slip through his fingers in a haze of stress and dissatisfaction. He started writing letters to old friends, reconnecting with loved ones, and making a conscious effort to be present in every interaction. He made peace with past conflicts and chose to focus on the beauty of life rather than its inevitable end. Happiness, Daniel realized, was not a destination. It was not a goal to be reached. It was a way of living, one guided by wisdom, acceptance, and the courage to focus on what truly mattered. Each day was an opportunity to practice these principles, to refine his thoughts and actions, and to embrace the brief and wondrous gift of life. Are you ready to reclaim your power, set boundaries, and live life on your own terms? If this story inspired you, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a community that embraces Stoic wisdom for a stronger, freer mind. Tell us in the comments, have you ever struggled? How did you break free? Your story could inspire someone else on their journey. Like this video if you found value in it. Each like helps us reach more people who need this message of self-respect and inner strength. Together we rise, together we grow. Subscribe now and walk the Stoic path with us.